Hello and welcome to my March wrap up. Today we're going to be talking about the books I read in March, and I will say this month was kind of a weird reading month for me. It wasn't bad, it wasn't amazing. It was, I don't know, it hard to describe honestly. Halfway through reading my TBR that I had planned out, I was getting very slumpish, which was weird because all the books that I was actively reading were all good books, well written, good plots, like interesting stories. But for some reason I wasn't like fully connecting to any of them. I don't know if it's because of the books themselves, if it was like me, if it was just like the timing of things. I was just like almost putting myself in a slump, which luckily that did not happen. And hopefully, knock on wood, that continues to not be an issue. But it was definitely a weird month, even though, like I said, the books I read were good books. So I read a total of 6 books this month. I actually made this fun little graphic that I'll put wherever it makes sense in the video, to just show overall because I don't always have all my physical books, although I do have 2 here. These are the 2 physical books I read, which was Bunny by Mona Wad that I got from Sammy. Thanks for letting me borrow it. And then Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. And then the rest I either did audiobooks or Kindles or a mix of both for like Project Hail Mary. Like I mentioned, a total of 6 books, which I almost did not get. I thought I was only going to have 5. And then literally in the last 2 days of March, I started and finished a book. So kind of happy that that happened because I do want to kind of try to keep improving on how many books I read a month. I've been enjoying reading more books just because the more books, the better. And that makes up of a total of 2,618 pages, which feels like a lot. I know I mentioned, I think in my first wrap up, that I wanted to like have this statistics. Yeah. To have these statistics like in my videos and also just like for me personally, just because I think it's fun. And then promptly forgot to do that by the next month. So now I'm actually going to try to stick to it and keep it on like one Canva, like slide or whatever, and like keep track throughout the year because I am curious to see if that's more than usual or less. I felt like more though, if I'm being honest. I also created a slide for my genre breakdown. I believe I had 2 romance, 2 fantasy, one sci-fi, and 1 thriller. I think that's what the breakdown was. So it would be 16.7% sci-fi and thriller, and 33.3% of romance and fantasy. My average rating for the month is a little bit off, I'll say, because I prematurely rated the last book I was reading, thinking it was going to be a higher rating than it was. So it's a little bit off. I just kind of didn't want to go back and fix it. So it's a 3.875. It's probably lower, like 3.7, maybe 3.6 or something. But yeah, so it was just fun for me to be able to see the kind of analytical breakdown of my month. I find that interesting and again, I want to compare it from month to month. But with that being said, let's get into the individual books that I read this month. Okay, and the first book I read this month was This Is Why We Lied by Karen Slaughter. This is the, I think, 12th book in her Will Trent detective series. And this is following Will Trent and his now wife, Sarah, and they are on a retreat. It's supposed to be their honeymoon. They're camping in the woods and they're, excited to have a good time. And then, unfortunately, the camp manager is murdered and they basically jump into the investigation even though it's supposed to be their honeymoon to try to figure out who did this. I really enjoyed Karen Slaughter's Will Trent series book that I read like 2 months ago, I think now. It was, even though it was the 11th in a series and that was like the first one I read, I really liked the characters and it felt like I was reading a Criminal Minds book, which is like my favorite thing ever. I will say for this one, I did still like the characters a lot. I think that drove a lot of the excitement for me to read it. But the characters that I really like, which were Will and Trent, or no, which were Will and Sarah, I felt like I didn't like them as much. I still love Sarah. There was like 1 or 2 moments in this where I was a little bit annoyed with Will and how he was speaking to my girl Sarah, I was like, okay, chill out, watch your mouth, because that's my girl. And like obviously it all made sense and like whatever, but I was like, I don't know. I just I'm always a woman defender, and he was in the wrong, obviously. So I was like a little, ooh. And it was literally probably like two sentences, but still that kind of threw me off. But I did really like the main female character who unfortunately was the murder victim in this, because we got to see like a few chapters every few chapters where it was like her narrating before she was murdered, and my heart just really breaks for her because she seemed like such a good person, or she was trying to be such a good person and trying to be such a good mom, and I feel like everybody in her life was actively working against her, and it was really sad. But it was a great thriller, great like mystery, like who done it. I will say I did guess this pretty early on. um so I don't know. I feel like sometimes I throw like random I like can't help myself from guessing. I don't think that affected the how interesting the story was and some of the other plots of the story, because it's yes, it's like this mystery thriller, but there's also just a lot of like discussion about like this family drama and addiction and what it can do to people and families. And so it was really interesting. This is definitely another book where you want to check your trigger warnings. But yeah, I would say this is a really fun series so far. I think this is the last one for now. I'm feeling like there'll probably be more in the future, but I just really like this cast of characters, and I'm interested to see what else they're up to in the next book potentially. Oh, and before I forget to mention this, I read this because this fulfilled my buzzword challenge of March for the title challenge, which was a title with this or that, and this is why we lied. So that's why I read it. Next one is also to fulfill a buzzword challenge. This was for the cover challenge, and it is movement. And I chose Catabasis, which I do actually have physically, as you can see with this beautiful cover, that there are people running around. There's paper flying in the air. I believe, I think there's like, am I crazy? I thought there was a cat on the cover, but I think I'm crazy and wrong. So I guess not. But this fulfills a challenge because, as you can see, there's some movement on there. This book was good. I, oh, also the last book, I would say, I think I gave like a 4 star. Yeah, maybe a 3.75. I can't remember. This one I would give a 3.75 for sure, I think, because I think for me, this was not what I was anticipating necessarily, not in a bad way. Very well written. I did not really like the main character, Alice. I don't think we're supposed to. I don't think she's supposed to be a super likable character. And like that's not always a big issue for me. I do kind of like liking the main character for obvious reasons, but that's not the biggest deal for me. It just was I mean, maybe it is cuz she was just a little bit frustrating to read from. Also this really quickly, this is a story about a girl who goes to Cambridge and she studies magic there. And her professor, one day after an accident, dies and goes to hell. She needs this professor to be able to basically vouch for her to try to get either something about a dissertation or for her to get like future opportunities essentially. And so she travels to hell to go save her professor, so to bring him back and basically just vouch for her. And while she is getting ready to go to hell, she is joined by her classmate slash kind of ex-friend Peter. So it was definitely like I loved that plot. Kind of at points giving me Alice in Wonderland vibes, which I realized like halfway through, I'm like, oh, her name is literally Alice. Like I'm sure there is a parallel there that I am obviously like catching on to very late. Like it was interesting to see like the descriptions of hell and how in this book they were compared to university and to college and to academia as a whole. And I thought that was really interesting and at times really funny, but other times I was just a little bit bored. I think I just was expecting a little bit more of a action packed, and it was. I think I compared it too much to Ninth House by Lee Bardugo, and I think that's maybe like stunted it a little bit for me because it to me I just wasn't as interested in the characters as much as I was with like Ninth House or the plot really. I don't know. But I will say descriptions of hell were really cool. The magic system was really interesting. I love reading about different types of magic systems that people come up with because some of them are so unique. And I love like learning about them, like how they work and why they have certain rules and certain like restrictions. I think that's really cool. So it was definitely an interesting book. I liked the writing, like style, I would say. I think for me, the characters are a big deal. and maybe these are just not the characters for me. I don't know. But yeah. Moving on to a romance for the month, I read Two Can Play by Allie Hazelwood. This was really cute. It is about oh my gosh, it's about a designer for a video game company who finds out that she has to work with their company's rival video game designer company in order to secure a deal with a book publishing house that wants to turn their book into a video game. And so they have to go on a writing or a company retreat in the mountains and get along. And obviously, romance ensues and forced proximity ensues, as we all know happens in these beautiful romances. There's two things that are my faults that I did not like about this book. They're totally my fault. One is that it is set during Christmas, or like not really, but it's set in like winter. It's supposed to be like a winter cabin and snowing, and it's like kind of near Christmas. I hate reading books. This sounds so dramatic, but I hate reading books when they're not seasonally appropriate. And granted, it is still cold where I live. It has snowed where I live, even in March. But I don't want to read about that too if I'm living. Like March is spring, March 20th, that's spring, baby. We're done with winter. So that I was like, oh, if I had known it was going to be a hot cocoa, winter, cozy snowball fight type of book, I would have saved it. But again, that's on me. Didn't think about that. There's literally snow on the cover. I didn't clock that. And then the second thing that disappointed me about the book that again was my fault is that this is only 199 pages. Who was going to tell me that? Not me. I didn't know that. So I'm like reading the book, having a great time. They're finally like together after all of the like miscommunication tropes, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yay, this is the fun part where they get to be in love and like it's gonna be so cute. And they'll probably have like a third act breakup, but it's gonna be fine because then they'll get back together and it's so cute. No, they got together and then that was it. I was like, what? I fully thought I had like an hour and a half left in my reading, like I was reading on my Kindle. No, I had seven. I was like saving the like last half. I was like so excited. Jumped into bed. 17 minutes left. Huh? Okay, that was disappointing. Again, that is my fault. However, I did love everything else. It had everything I loved. Enemies to lovers, not really, but enemies to lovers. I love Ellie Hazelwood's. I think I said this in my TBR video for this month. I love her like nerdy romances. I don't want her sports romance, and I haven't read Bride, but I would consider it. Maybe I just am not as intrigued. I just love her nerdy romances, and I don't know why. They just strike a chord with me. I love these little nerds. So cute. Again, it was a very much an Allie Hazelwood trope of like, oh my God, he's like 6 feet tall and she's like cute and not that tall. And I'm like, eat it up every time. I'm a simple woman, sorry to say. So it was definitely a fun, simple, light romance. If you want something like that, maybe save it for winter. But if you're looking for a really cozy, cute, holiday-ish romance, with all the good tropes in it, this was definitely it. And I think I gave this a 3, maybe a 4. I don't remember. I'll put them on the screen. But I gave it a lower score because I was annoyed about how short it was. So take that into account. Okay, the next one I read was very exciting. It is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This was a very anticipated book for me because, as you are now able to see on my channel, please go check it out if you'd like. I made a vlog of reading it leading up to the movie release, and I had so much fun doing that. It was so fun. I tried to make it kind of a themed thing where I did some other space-ish things. I say that very lightly. I will just say that I made like fun kind of themed food and like try to dress and whatever. It was light. Okay, I don't have a lot of space themed things in my apartment. However, it was just fun. I had so much fun, like getting amped up, reading the book at home, and then going to watch it like in movie theaters was so fun. I love going to the movies, and definitely would do that again if there's like another adaptation that I'm excited about this year. We'll be doing that because I had a great time. And the plot of this is that Ryland Grace, who is a scientist turned science teacher at I think it's a middle school, basically gets kidnapped, sort of. No, basically gets asked to be part of a team who is trying to save the world from an organism that is trying to eat the sun. Such a cool plot. First of all, I have said this, I think, a million times. I'm not totally a sci-fi girl, and I'm definitely not really a space girl. It's not my favorite thing to, it's not my favorite setting. But this was really good, and I think what I really liked about it was the character. Like Ryland Grace, I just loved him. I love his trope of character, like that kind of sarcastic, doesn't take himself too seriously, like a little self-deprecating character is my favorite. It's just fun to read from him and like get connected to his character and also his like relationships later on. Like the end of the book did have me tearing up a little bit, and then the movie, the waterworks were out. I was fully crying in that movie theater. Especially because I knew like the things that were going to be brought up and happen. I was like pre tearing up. I was like already before things even happened. I was like, oh my God, this is when that happens. And yeah, it was really good. It was just a very sweet, almost like hopeful story, and it doesn't seem that way when you're reading it at first, but it is. And I just, yeah, I think my main takeaway is that I just love Ryland, and I loved his kind of like growth in a way, but also there's just a part at the end where there's like this kind of realization, and it just felt very real and human and made me like him even more in a way. And I'm so glad they kept that into the movie. I thought that was something they might have considered removing, and they didn't. I'm very grateful that they kept it because I think it was such an interesting, very human moment. And I just love this book a lot. I gave the book initially 4 stars. I think I would give it 4.5 actually, because I initially took off a star because I do feel like in the book the sciencey stuff did get a little bit overwhelming for me. But I honestly, after seeing the movie was 5 out of 5. Loved it. After seeing it, I'm like, okay, I don't think that's enough to give off a full star. So maybe 4.5, maybe even 4.75. I don't know. Who cares? I don't know. Ratings to me don't matter as much, but I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I think you should pick it up and then go watch the movie, preferably in IMAX, which I did not do, but I wish I had. So listen to me and don't do as I say. Or wait, do as I say, don't do as I do. Yeah. So the last book I have is not what I had on my TBR. I had a book about Lady Jane Grey, who is from the Tudor era, and she was one of Henry VIII's wives, or the fifth. I can never remember which one it is. And I decided to put a hold on that for now because I had an idea around that. Like I was going to do a reading vlog, but I kind of switched it up a little bit. And also I had some last minute things come up, so I wasn't even able to film a video that at that time. So I'm going to save that for later, and I have other plans with that. But instead, I read A Ship of Bones and Teeth, and this is a dark fantasy romance. It is a dark fantasy pirate romance, and it's also supposed to be like an Ariel retelling. It is about a girl, Marin, who one day decides to give away her siren song in order to live on land and meet this prince who turns out to be kind of a D-bag, and she hates him and realizes she's made a huge mistake and wishes to go back to the water and become a siren again, even though she cannot. And that all changes when she meets the captain of the Nightwing. I think it's the Nightwing. Yeah. And romance ensues. Like I said, this is a dark romance, so check any trigger warnings. I don't think it was like especially crazy, but definitely something to keep in mind. I started out really enjoying this book. Like I was kind of almost surprised by how much I enjoyed just the actual plot of this. I honestly picked it up because I just wanted something really fluffy and really light and not, I mean, it's a dark fantasy, so light might not be the best word, but just something easy to consume. And this was that, but it also, I did really enjoy the plot and I was just having fun with it. And I thought it was like pretty well done for like for like most of the book. And then I do feel like the last few chapters of the book, it did start to wane a little bit. One, there was a lot of typos, which is not great. I mean, and not the biggest deal, but it is also, it does kind of take you out of the reading a little bit when you're like reading a typo. And then I just feel like it got a little bit lazy. I don't know. Like it just, the writing got a little bit lazy. I feel like granted, this is a fantasy. I'm not, or this is a romance, dark romance, like spicy fantasy before it's anything else. It's not like a epic fantasy. So I'm not expecting this like crazy world building or this crazy even storytelling of the fantasy elements. Although I feel like it was doing a really good job. And then the last few chapters, it was like, okay, I don't know. Like the like final battle between the like enemies of the book and stuff was a little lackluster. Although I do feel like that's a problem in a lot of fantasy books for me. So I'll cut it some slack. But I don't know, it just felt like it was like trying to wrap up. Even like the sex scenes that started off pretty good, like felt like they were just rushed and they were like, okay, we have a few like minutes in between this battle and this other thing, like let's bang really quick. And then it was hard to connect and like even like have fun with them because I'm like, okay, whatever. Like this doesn't even seem like the time, but sure. So I liked it. I think I'll definitely pick up some more. I'm just like in a pirate mood. I don't know why. I feel like actually I kind of want to save a few piratey books for like June. That gives me like pirate month vibes. Like that's beginning of summer, beach vibes. But it was fun to read something like this now because I think I'm just craving the warmer weather and going to the lake and going to the beach and whatever. So this was like a nice taste of that. And I had fun with the plot for the most part, just had fun with like the setting. I love a ship sea setting, so really loved that. So it wasn't a bad book. I just think I was a little bit disappointed. I was ready to give it 4 stars, and I think I ended up giving it like 3 or 3.5, just because it did feel like it kind of fell flat in those last few chapters. Okay, I almost forgot to talk about the other physical book I read this month, and I did read this actually physically and on audiobook, and that is We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad. This is the sequel to Bunny, but it is the prequel in the storyline, if that makes sense. And I really enjoyed this one, which I'm happy about because I was previously thinking that I was not going to read it at all, that I was not going to like it because I enjoyed Bunny so much and it didn't really feel like it needed a prequel or a sequel or anything. So I was a little bit like, ugh, not excited about it. But I did really enjoy it. This is following the bunnies, who in the first book, like we were following, it was through Samantha's POV and not the four girls. Wait, was it four? Cupcake, Vignette, Duchess. Yeah, and not following the four girls who are known as the bunnies in the story. And this one, they have kidnapped Samantha after her launch of her successful book about the bunnies, which was so funny because it's very meta. Like they were referencing things from the first book that as if it's like a book in their world too. So I just thought that was really, really cool. I really loved that. And so they have kidnapped her to tell her their stories, but essentially everything that happened before they actually joined up with Samantha in Bunny, and like all their experiments and everything leading up to that book, which was really fun and so funny. I love these characters. Like I loved them in the first book, and I just love them in this one. I just love a crazy woman. Sorry to say, like I just think they're so fun to follow. They're so interesting. They're so different. I love the characterizations. Like I kind of love that they all have their like very niche like this is exactly their aesthetic and who they are and like they kind of stick with it. I don't know. I just really liked that. Like the characterizations of them I thought were really funny and like well done and just like fun to read from. And I loved like learning a little bit more about them. I don't know why I ever thought I wasn't going to, because I feel like they were such a big aspect of what I liked from the first book. And yeah, I just had so much fun reading from them. I think that this was so interesting to hear more about their individual characters and their backgrounds. And in a way, as much as I did enjoy it and I stick with that, a little part of me is like I kind of liked the mystery of them in the first book and like not knowing as much. But like I said, I still really liked learning more about them and like finding out all this background stuff I thought was funny. And I loved hearing from Arius. His chapters were not only so cute and funny, but honestly really sad. Like I felt really bad for him and I did not think I was gonna feel bad for him. Not you, baby. Not you. The only thing I will say is that I honestly wish I had reread Bunny before going into this, because there was a lot of things that were mentioned and like obviously alluded to that were from that book, and I it's been a long time since I read it, so I didn't totally remember. But honestly, I feel like this would be a good opportunity to reread it now, considering this is technically a prequel. So I might just do that eventually and maybe do that soon and try to like piece together everything. But this was really fun. It was just as campy, if not way more campy. Actually, probably way more campy than Bunny. And I love this plot. I think it's so interesting. I think also, oh my God, I loved the like descriptions of the people who go to this school, Warren. Like it's like a creative writing school, and they have like the poets and then they have the fictions, which like the bunnies are the fictions, and there's like a big feud, and them there's not a big feud, but it's like a thing that they don't like each other. And like reading about that was so funny. I just felt like I could see everything so well. Like I think this needs to be a really funny campy movie. There's a movie that just came out called Forbidden Fruits. I'm not even really sure what it's about, but I feel like whoever did that should do a bunny movie. I feel like from the trailers I saw, the vibes would match and it would be like a good mix, like a good setup, because the bunny plot and like We Love You Bunny plot is just so campy and funny and like well done that I think it would be such a good movie. So I really enjoyed this, and I'm so glad that I actually picked it up. Thank you, Sammy, for letting me borrow it. Although I will say I still hate the cover. Sorry. I think maybe one day I would buy like what's it called? Paperback, but this hardcover is not it for me. Sorry. That concludes my March wrap up. I had some good reading this month, even if I was feeling a little bit slumpish. I still enjoyed a lot of these books and I feel like I got a lot out of them. And I'm hoping that April brings just another burst of energy to continue this good reading streak and continue reading above my goal of like 4 or 5 books a month. So, yeah, with that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.